you don't know how much you missed something until it's gone. And in this case, you don't know how much you missed the breather episodes until they're gone because, oh my god, I could really use a breather. But with that said, hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another one of our weekly Fruits Basket, the final discussion videos. Today we're here to talk about episode 8, What's Your Name? But before we get into the video proper, quick reminder if you haven't done so yet, to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, and let all of AniTube know that you're here. Let's go ahead and set our like goal this week at 200 likes. Let's see if we can try to hit that before the end of the day. That'd be awesome. But with that said, everybody, that's all that I have at the beginning of this. I'm stalling because I'm kind of emotional and I don't really want to get into it. But without further ado, let's get into it. So, yeah, this whole episode is basically a big confession mixed with the truth of what happened to Kyoko. And, it's a lot. It's not just like a lot, it's like a lot. So I'm gonna start by talking about the truth, right? Like what actually happened, how Kyo and Kyoko met, what happened to Kyoko in the first place, all that stuff, because that's what is taking up a majority of the episode. It's definitely what's the most like meaty thing to sink your teeth into. Obviously some other stuff happens and we'll get there as we go, but I felt it made the most sense to talk about Kyoko and Kyo and this whole little dynamic they have, because Kyoko and Kyo didn't meet in like this like grandiose way or anything. It's just Kyoko was like on her break, I think. Like she was just like either coming home from work or on her break or something, and she bumps into Kyo. And she bumps into him on like those like, you know, like those steel cylinder things that they were sitting on. And she's like, like you're too young to be dyeing your hair orange. Wait, is that your actual hair? And he's like, leave me alone. And she's like, what's your name? And he does, or no, she goes, I'm Kyoko, right? Because he keeps saying like, hey you, blah, 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 right? And she's like, no, I'm Kyoko Honda. What's your name? And he's like, I'm not saying, because he's embarrassed because their names sound similar. Kyoko and Kyo, now we know why the names are similar, because it made Kyo embarrassed later in the story, which is cute. So she doesn't actually ever learn his name. She just refers to him as Squirt. Like, hey Squirt, like what's going on? Like just basically just runt, right? Like, hey, how's it going, dude? Like, little man, stuff like that, just like pet names, right? So, but specifically Squirt is what Kyo remembers her calling him. And I find this whole scene to be like especially cute. It's later tragic in hindsight, but it's sweet because Kyoko has no clue what she meant to Kyo, and Toru had no idea what she meant to him without even meeting each other. How much her influence or her life influenced his without even the two of them meeting, right? Kyoko had a huge impact on Kyo. And it's only in like the latter half of the show that we're starting to figure out why and like the ins and outs of that, right? Like we're beginning to believe, we're starting to understand. And it's that Kyo, when he met her, was his mom left, you know, like his mom felt guilty for even like conceiving him and died because she couldn't deal with the guilt. And then his dad just up and basically abandons him, says like all this horrible stuff, blames him. Akito obviously doesn't like him. The Somas look down on him. Like everybody treats him like garbage. So the only one who never treated him that way was Shisho. Like it was Kazuma. He was the only one who ever treated him with respect. And then Kyoko shows up and he explained, she's like, where's your mom? And he's like, she's gone, like she's dead. And she goes, okay, what about your dad? And he goes, he wishes I was dead, and I wish the same for him. And Kyoko just kind of rests her hand on his head and just says that it must be lonely. And gives him like a gentle smile. And she probably had no clue what she did by saying that, but Kyo felt as though she had given him sort of a forgiveness for existing, which is so heavy that he even felt like he needed that. but he felt like Kyoko had almost given him her blessing to exist, which is so sad. And he began to really value his time with her. Like he runs home and tells Kazuma like, hey, I met this friend. And Kazuma's obviously like, what? He's like, no, Shisho, you don't understand. Like, I met this person. She's not like weird, but she's just different in a good way. And she told me I should visit her again. And Kazuma, being like a good person, but maybe not the greatest parent, says like, I guess you should go see them again. I'm like, I would at least go see who he's talking to just to be safe. But, Kazuma has like that dad censor where he's like, I know that they're a good person. So he just kind of says like, well, I guess you should go keep seeing them. And it's funny because he had only ever he had spoken with Kyoko a ton as a kid, but he had only ever seen Toru once through a window, right? And now in the present day, he has spoken to Toru a bunch, but only ever really sees Kyoko in picture frames, right? So it's funny how he sees both of them in frames at different point in his life and talks a bunch with the other one. Symbolism? Probably not, but he when he first sees Toru, she's eating alone and he hated how lonely she looked. And even though he knew it wouldn't do anything and it wouldn't help, he knew, like, he began to worry about them. Like, he would worry, like, are they happy right now? Are they lonely right now? Are they smiling right now? Is there anything I can do to make it that way? So he really began to feel as though he owed them. And that's where the promise comes in. Because when Kyo has these thoughts, he eventually decides to actually go and see Kyoko for once, instead of just having Kyoko bump into him on her break or whatever. And so he runs to her, and that's when Kyoko tells him that Toru's gone missing. And you might remember the time when Toru disappeared. That's when Yuki finds her and gives her the hat and everything. That is this day. So we know how this story ends. Like, we know that Yuki's the one who gets to Toru, that Kyo doesn't have anything to do with it. It's his hat that Yuki gives her, but it's not any of Kyo's assistants that helps save Toru. But here we see both Kyoko and Kyo begin to search for her, and this is where the promise comes in, because he sees Kyoko like distraught over Toru disappearing, and he makes a promise to her, a man's promise, to find her and to protect her, right? To keep an eye on her. And in this moment, Kyoko likely sees like what a good kid Kyo is and who he'll eventually become. And so she gives him the fist bump and says, all right, it's a promise. And he does try. Like, he searches. So the search starts at night. It is like morning by the time it's done. And Kyo's just the boy at this point. But he goes searching all over town, desperately looking for Toru. And he doesn't find her. Instead, Yuki finds her. And he is pissed because he feels like this is Yuki's fault. Like, how? Like, everybody loves him. How come they don't love me? Everything, like, he takes everything, like, that I have. He already has everything. Why is he taking stuff from me? And, again, Kyoko obviously doesn't know anything about the Somas. She has no idea what he's talking about. But she says, like, it's easier to blame him because then you have a bad guy, right? Like, then you have somebody to be angry at. And Kyo sees this as sort of, like, a traitorous move. And so he actually shoves her and runs away. But before he does completely run away, Kyoko says, hey, I'm gonna hold you to that promise one day. And Kyo keeps running, right? So he views himself as this sort of boy who ran away, and this is twice as bad when Kyo and Kyoko reunite, only for Kyoko to get hit by a car and die. But here's the thing. So Kyo could have saved Kyoko. He could have. But if he did, then when he grabbed her and sort of embraced her and got out of the way, everyone would know that he was a cat. Like, everyone would see him transform, and he would who knows what would happen, like I guess like Hattori would have to go and wipe their memories of him and all this stuff, and all those people who were there. It could have been a huge problem, because how do you even track down all those people? Like, it would have been an intense problem. So the curse actually acting like a curse here, and it gives Kyo enough hesitation to not be able to reach out in time, and Kyoko gets hit, right? Because you see him, he reaches out, and then his hand sort of clenches because he realizes the curse, like he remembers the curse, and Kyoko does have time to see it's Kyo, and then gets hit. And it's funny because, like, in that split second, he could have, right? But what's interesting to me is that Kyoko apparently says that she'll never forgive him. Now, we know that she has time to see him, and we know that I'll never forgive you is something that is actually said. So she does say, I will never forgive you, but he says that's what it sounds like she says. I don't actually think, given the information we know about Kyoko, that she said that. Like, even Toru's like, I kind of don't believe she said that. And I'm inclined to agree. I think that's what he heard is, I'll never forgive you. My guess, given the context clues of the promise and the fact that Kyoko is not a jerk, is that she probably was trying to say, I'll never forgive you if you break that promise. That is my guess at what was actually said, because I don't really believe in any capacity that Kyoko would destroy Kyo like that, even at her deathbed. Even if she did think it was Kyo's fault, I highly doubt she would ever say that to him. So my guess is what she tried to say was, I'll never forgive you if you break that promise. I think she was telling him, like, you need, like, if I'm gone, you need to go find her and take care of her, because without me, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, I think that that's what she was hinting at. Like, I'll never forgive you if you break that promise. You have to keep that promise to me. That's what I think it was. Not, I'll never forgive you because you didn't save me. It's, I'll never forgive you if you don't do this thing. If you don't fulfill that promise. You made me a promise. You'll protect her. That's what you told me. You promised. Right? Like, so that's what I assume the I'll never forgive you is about. You have to. And, like, to Kyo's credit, like, I do feel like if he had heard that whole thing, he would have. You know, like, he would have done that. And the thing is, though, that's all he hears, because he's so wrapped up in his own self-hatred and self-doubt. And he, instead of confronting the fact that it really wasn't his fault. Like, I know he keeps saying, like, it's my fault. And I'm like, yeah, you could have saved her, right? But it's not your fault that she died. You know, that's not on you. You had a moment of hesitation. It cost Kyoko, but it's not like you did that. Like, it was an accident. Like, that wasn't your fault. If anything, it's the driver's fault. You know, like, it's not you. It's someone else. Like, it's not actually Kyo's fault. But instead of realizing that, we get the Kyo that we have at the beginning of the series. Because, again, this is all a prequel, right? Like, this part was all just a big prequel to the beginning of the show, right? Because what ends up happening is that we get the Kyo who wants to beat Yuki before the end of high school, because if he does, then he will be acknowledged as a member of the Zodiacs. Like, he will actually be welcomed in by Akito, which is not true, but he thinks that, right? Like, there's no way Akito would actually do that. But he becomes jaded and he hates Yuki, and it becomes this thing of, Yuki did this. This is Yuki's fault. Like, this is why we see the two hate each other so much at the beginning of the show. And I think it's part of the reason why the Yuki-Kyo fight and rivalry has died down, because I think Yuki has definitely cooled off on his dislike for Kyo, but I think Kyo's realizing that Yuki never was the bad guy. That Yuki never was actually supposed to be hated by him or anything like that, or that Yuki even did anything wrong. Like, it was that he needed someone to blame. And that's heavy. Like, that's heavy, heavy stuff. And the whole episode is heavy, right? Like, the whole episode is just Kyo realizing that they're not realizing that he did something, but just remembering the memory that he had locked away. And he explains that to Toru, that like it's not that he was lying to her this whole time, it's not that he was hiding something, it's that he legitimately had blocked that memory out. It was so traumatic that he just wiped it from his mind, but seeing the hat, it all came back. Like it all just rushed back to him, and he realized why he felt so close with Toru, and how he remembered her, and like why he remembered, and what happened to Kyoko. He remembered all of it, and it killed him inside. And that's all what happened, right? Like that's the truth of what happened. That Kyo and Kyoko were friends when Kyo was a kid, and he had the opportunity to save Kyoko, but he couldn't. And he blames himself, and he feels like Kyoko blames him as well. And he says that he's the boy who always runs. Like, he's the one who always runs away. Who can't face his problems. He has to run. And the thing is, this whole truth bomb, only happens because Toru was going to confess. And Kyo's like, do you love me? So he beats her to it. And Toru's obviously shocked. And that's when Kyo's like, oh shit, she does. Right? Like, so it all sort of hits, and he says, like, I thought your mom was your number one, right? And Toru can't respond, and then that's when he walks outside, and the two of them are outside in the rain, because it's gotta be dramatic. Don't forget, this is the exact same day that friggin' Kureno gets stabbed. And I don't even know what the hell happened to Kureno, we still don't know. But this is the reason why the truth bomb happens, is because Kyo is like, you cannot love me. It can't be me, because I'm the reason why Kyoko's gone. And he tells Toru that Kyoko said she'd never forgive him. And so Toru says, in response, one of the best things I think Toru's ever said, and that is, if that's the case, then I'd have to rebel against her too, because at the end of the day, she loves him. Right? And it's like, damn, like that hit hard. And I love that Yuki's like, oh my god, she actually said it. Like, who you think you kid? He's the earth and heaven to you. Like, it actually happened. Like, me and Yuki had the same reaction of like, oh my god, she actually said it. Hot damn. Good for you, Toru. And I was all happy. Until Kyo's response of, I'm so disappointed in you. And he runs. And I was like, wait, no, Kyo, like, he just bolts. And even Yuki, again, is the audience surrogate in this episode, where he does the same thing. He goes, Kyo, what are you doing? And runs after her. Of course, they have to run in opposite directions. Because, like, Kyo runs down, and he runs down the street, and then, or runs down the steps and then down the street. And Yuki runs down the steps and then goes up the street, because he can't figure out where he went. So it's like, damn it. So, like, they're too far apart, so he doesn't see which way Kyo goes. So Yuki goes the other way. And it's mind-blowing, because for Yuki, it's like, yes, like, they're actually gonna get together. This is, like, even Yuki is a Kyoru shipper at this point. He's like, this makes the most sense. It'll make Toru happy. It might actually make Kyo a better person, as far as Yuki's concerned, because Yuki still kind of has a little resentment for Kyo, let's be honest. So he's like, it might make him a better person. It'll make Toru or Honda-san happy. This should be a thing. And then Kyo runs. So of course Yuki's like, you idiot, and like runs after him. However, when that happens, Yuki tells Toru, like, hey, you should go inside, you'll catch a cold. And so now Kyo is running away from Toru. Yuki's running after Kyo. Toru's left alone. I don't see Shigure anywhere. And Akito shows up with the dagger. And she, like, climbs through the mud to get to Toru with the dagger. And no one there. I swear. Takia, you listen to me? And you listen? I swear to God, if anything happens to Toru, if a hair on her head is hurt, I am going to scream and then cry my zombie eyes out until I can't cry no more, and then I'm gonna scream some more. Cause the fact that no one's there, and it's just her, Akito, and this jerk has a dagger in their hands, I can't, like, this whole ending was like, I don't even know how to process what I'm feeling. That's how heavy the end of this episode was, where I'm like, what? And then and I'm like, no happy ED, none of that. No happy ED. I'm emotional right now. This is the thing, right? Because, like, is this good? Yeah, it's real good, right? Like, this is good drama. It's so much. Like, it's so much drama so quickly to the point where it feels less like Fruba and more like Game of Thrones. Like, it's so much drama so fast. Like, it's... One of the beautiful things about Fruba was that it took its time. It let you sit with every decision that each character made, right? Like, every time something big happened, it let you sit with it for a second and dial it in and really feel the drama, right? Like, it let you understand these characters. Sit with it, right? That is not available to you in the final season. Like, it is just like, things are happening. It is all being thrown at the viewer. Is it a lot? Yeah. But is it good? Oh, hell yeah. It's very good. I do love it. I know that I talk about the pacing each episode, but it's just because, like, holy crap. First of all, we talk about the episodes in these videos, so of course I'm going to mention the pacing, because the pacing in every episode has been really fast. But it doesn't make it bad. It's still incredibly good. It's just so much, right? Like, it's so much. It's a lot denser than it used to be. And, like, the drama's much thicker. You can't quite cut it with a knife anymore. Now you need a chainsaw. But it's still very good. But with that said, everybody, that is going to wrap up today's video here, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot, share if you care, leave a comment down below, and of course, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, let all of AniTube know that you're here. Don't forget the like goal. And before we go, as always, I want to give a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful people. Look at all these beautiful names, and hey, if you would like to join these beautiful people, there are 2 ways to do so. The first is by hitting that join button right beside the sub button. That gets you a badge next to your name, some emotes to spam in the comments, and of course your name scrolling past the screen here. Or you could check out that Patreon link in the description. Either way, it is super appreciated. So once again, a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. And I am now going to just sit with this for a week. Just gonna sit here and wonder what the hell's gonna happen for a whole week. Can't wait. Okay, bye.